They allow us to test assurance, explore risk, and make sure that policing across our area is well placed to deliver the priorities as are set out in the Policing Crime Plan. I want to be really clear that my Policing Crime Plan is not just a statement of ambition. It is a driving, real, tangible change across the organisation where modernisation is becoming a lived reality rather than just an aspiration. The modernise pillar is there to drive investment in new technology, to streamlining processes and supporting our workforce with the right tools and skills. It is helping us work smarter, respond faster and build a service that is fit for the future. Crucially, this is not change for its own sake. It's about delivering a more efficient, responsive and visible police service that the public can have confidence in. My role is to hold the force to account for making that happen, including how it embraces new technology such as AI and automation to improve productivity, decision-making and save money. I also want to talk about the police estate to make sure resources are focused on frontline priorities and are fit for the future. Here in the room today from the Constabulary, we have the Chief Constable, ACC Dutton, and the Head of Planning and Performance, Paul Woods. As usual, I will be the only one asking questions and introducing each theme so that those watching can understand not only what is being asked, but why. I would now like to propose that we approve the minutes of the previous scrutiny board meeting held on the 29th of April. Thank you. And before I begin my questions, I'd like to invite the Chief Constable to offer a brief introduction.
Thank you. And actually, the introduction will touch on a couple of points you've raised there yourself. Obviously, the focus of the meeting is on the Constabulary's approach to modernisation, which is an important part of the Force's strategy. As you alluded to yourself there, it's important to recognise that it's not an end in itself, though, and that the objective of it is to improve the services we provide to the public whilst operating within the budget constraints that we face. Just to emphasise that point, for the 12 months ending June 2026, technology clearly is a key part for the Force Control Centre. We answered 94% of emergency calls in 10 seconds, which is an improvement on the 93% of the year before. And that's only a percent, but when you look at the volume of calls we take, it's a significant service to a large number of people. The average time for a non-emergency call was 3 minutes and 12 seconds, which was an improvement of 40 seconds on the previous year. And I'm sure, like you sometimes get faced with the comments, if you ring 101, you'll be hanging on for 40 minutes an hour. That's absolutely nonsensical. That was the case maybe 5 years ago, that there was considerable wait, but I think those times now of 3 minutes, 12 seconds on 101, that's a good service considering the volume of calls we make, and is very comparable with lots of other functions that operate at a control centre. Crucially, the difference that makes is it means we get to the public quicker when they need us. So 92% of emergency incidents were answered in 15 minutes, maintaining that excellent performance. That's when the public need us most. We get there quickly. And over 87% of grade 2 priority incidents, which we aim to get there within an hour, which was an increase from 85% on the previous year, which again, I think we'd all agree that's an excellent service to the public. For the year to the end of May 26, crime has been largely stable with previous years following 4 years of reductions, but there has been some key reductions in key crime types such as burglary, which is something that clearly the public have understandable concern about. National data for 2025 shows that of the 43 forces, Cheshire is the 11th lowest overall crime rate in the country, with low levels of crime for a number of key crimes, including shoplifting, where we're the second lowest, which is obviously an area of focus for lots of people around retail crime. At the same time, the latest national outcome rates have been published for the period April to December 2025, which are outstanding for Cheshire. They show that we have the highest charge rate in the country for all crime. For violence offences, which I think reflects in part our robust approach to domestic abuse, stalking and harassment, and sexual offences. And I think if we asked any member of the public what the most important things to deal with, it'd be those where people are being physically hurt, subject to stalking, harassment, and of course sexual offences. So if you commit one of those offences, you are more likely to be brought to justice in Cheshire than anywhere else. And if you look at some of the other acquisitive crimes, certainly, again, Cheshire has the highest outcome rate in the country for burglary, which if you ask a member of the public what's going to be the most serious property-related crime, I'm sure that they would say burglary. Protecting the most vulnerable members of society remains a strong focus for the force. HMIC recently published their Spotlight report on the investigation of online crime, child abuse and the management of sex offenders, with Cheshire mentioned several times in relation to good practice. In the Spotlight reports, they don't tend to highlight or name and shame negative reports, but they will highlight positive practice, and Cheshire was roundly recognised around that. And clearly, we're talking about modernisation. Digital online crime is highly dependent on technology, so that again speaks to our strong performance in that area. Of course, in the last round of peel inspections, Cheshire was the only force in the country to be graded outstanding by HMIC. The force can evidence high performance across a huge range of operational and supporting functions. To be confident, I think, that we can say we're the best performing force in the country at this time. And I think that's an absolute testament to the hard work of our officers and staff. And I'm sure you join with me in congratulating them on those efforts. Before I just turn to modernisation, I'll just mention some of the demand we've faced recently, because it is absolutely relevant to the modernisation piece, because of course we want to modernise to give a better service to the public, but equally where we see increases in demand, in some ways we have to run very fast to stand still as we see the increased volumes and complexities around some things. So just over the last month or so, we have faced significant demand challenges. That is in keeping with the rest of the country. So, as some examples, on the 26th of this month, which was Friday, days are blurring. On the 26th of the month, we had 809,999 calls. That is the highest ever on record for the force. The previous highest was 739. The figure of 819 was 52% above the June daily average. So, just to put that in context, that's taken into account New Year's Eves, busy days for all manner of things, and we had the highest ever number of calls. Now, in terms of that demand, there was nothing particularly about that date where you would predictably say it was going to be particularly high. We've had hot weather, the football's on, can't always see a direct correlation with that, but in keeping with forces regionally and across the country, we have seen significant demand. So in effect, we're having to do more with the same to maintain the levels of service, and it was a testament to our people that we maintained those grade 1 performance figures. In relation to the 101 calls, we were 100 above the June daily average. In terms of workload, that clearly comes through. So in terms of grade 1 activity, those calls that we identify as the highest priority, they were 39% higher than the same day in 2025 and 36% above the June daily average. We had seen an increase in the demand. We knew it was going to be hot weather. So on the 25th, we deployed an extra 160 personnel, warranted officers from different functions, into meeting the initial that anticipated demand. Now that's something we can do. We can't do it routinely, because if you're taking them away from beat, area investigations, headquarters function roles, that means something else slipping. But in this case, it was the important thing to do to manage those anticipated increase in volumes. And by doing that, it enables us to stand still on the 25th. Had we not done that, the open list, which currently stood at 120 this morning, would have been in excess of 350, which is members of the public waiting for a service. So demand is increasing. We were glad of being able to deploy the additional warranted officers to frontline duties, but it's just indicative that we'll strive to be as efficient as we can, but sometimes the rules of the game will change, and we'll have to be better and slicker just to maintain performance. So with that context, just to specifically talk about modernisation, obviously it's a key strategy such as the IT strategy, estate strategy and AI approach, which have been developed in conjunction with your office to ensure they align with the priorities of the police and crime plan. We have strong governance arrangements around the delivery of these strategies and also provide updates on progress through the Joint Management Board. I think it's fair to say that Cheshire has a strong track record of delivering innovation and efficiencies. The latest HMIC report stated that the Constabulary has clear plans to invest in its digital data and technology solutions to improve efficiency and productivity. I think it's important that wherever we can demonstrate to you external validation of the claims that we make, and we've received that in a number of different ways. Our AI enablement programme has been endorsed with the approach, the approach has been endorsed by the Home Office, and we're also a Microsoft Frontier Force, one of only 3 UK forces informing and testing 2 of their international pilots. So we've got the Home Office complementing our approach to it, and Microsoft again endorsing us. We were the first force in the UK to adopt the Saab Safe product for the Force Control Centre and have worked with the supplier to develop the product for future customers. I use that example just to point out that we have for some time now been at the forefront of trying to adopt and integrate new technology. We are a pioneer force for the LEDS driver products, the replacement for PNC, and work with national agencies to shape that. We have an in-house app development team who develop tools to support the frontline officers and staff to streamline processes and data input. And I think that speaks to the approach where we're seeking to be fleet of foot. We're not looking to pay lots of money to external experts. Wherever possible, we will seek to develop things in-house. A, as it's more it's cost-effective, but B, it also means we can influence the product to make sure it's genuinely what the front line wants. Examples of that are the new victim management app, which is being rolled out in support of VCOP. Bill Dutton, our ACC, is sat next to me. As you're aware, Bill's role is to lead on AI and the modernisation piece. Clearly, Bill has other functions for us as well in terms of custody and supporting the overall operational resilience of the command team. But I think sometimes actions speak louder than words. And I think the fact that I've taken the step to put a Assistant Chief Constable in charge of this area of business aligns with the police and crime plan, but also signals our commitment actually to this, that we are looking to take a grip of it and have a senior leader pushing things along in this area of business. We're obviously keen to maximise the opportunities that AI can offer. However, we're also keen to ensure that it's done in an ethical, transparent, innovative, economical and sustainable solutions. And as you know, we've briefed the independent ethics panel as to our approach in this area, just to ensure that we are transparent, but doing things that meet local requirements as well as the national framework. To this end, partly as a result of that, partly as a result of budget, we've thus far steered away from commercial solutions. You'll have seen there's been some very high-profile challenges, certainly in London, to the procurement of services from particular companies. We've avoided that challenges yet, and wherever can, we will develop things in-house and in collaboration with stakeholders as a cost-effective way of doing it. We've launched and rolled out Microsoft Copilot across the force, again with strict guidelines as to how it can be used. We've deployed a national capability called TOEX within some specialist units to provide translation and transcription services, and we're currently developing solutions to deliver efficiency savings and productivity gains across general business functions, crime recording, translation support, transcribing services and force intelligence, in line with the outline business case that we presented at Joint Management Board. And just one of those examples in terms of translation services, you can imagine the number of people we deal with as victims, witnesses and suspects, and the number now of foreign national offenders who we're seeing in our custody block, and also foreign nationals as victims. Frankly, our translation bills have gone through the roof, and that is manifestly a reflection of the changing nature of society. We have obligations to meet, and so any IT solution that can support us on that is very welcome, because it's one of those examples where we can be more efficient to meet rising demand. In line with the estate strategy, a strong programme to maintain and modernise our estate suite. As you're aware, we will build new stations where necessary, and we're committed to providing an environment that is suitable for the public, victims and our officers and staff. In the last year, we've refurbished all of our custody suites to provide a safe environment. Independent custody visitors have been brought on board to support that, and that has been delivered on track and is receiving constructive feedback. Again, that was delivered without operational disruption. You can imagine that we shut our 3 custody facilities on a rotational basis and made other arrangements to house prisoners. We were supported by Merseyside. We've also supported Merseyside in a similar way when they've moved through refurbishments. But it's a testament to the work that went into that we were able to do that significant refurbishment without the detriment to operational effectiveness. As you're well aware, in July last year we completed the new police station at Wimslow, which has been built to passive house standards, which I'm sure is a good thing, which assures its sufficient energy usage, and it's the first of its kind in the UK. In October we completed a new taser range within the Tactical Training Centre that will enable the Constabulary to be one of the first forces in the country to utilise the new taser. That rollout's now underway. It's a much better piece of kit, but it was severely delayed by national procurement and sign-off issues with the Home Office, but we are now rolling that out. In January, we commenced building a new deployment base in Crewe, which is designed to have net zero carbon footprint, and is currently forecast to be completed on budget in spring 2027, and I'm sure we will be delighted to move our people out of the old Crewe police station, which is, if I was to say it was tired and past its best, it would be a massive understatement.
Thank you for that really comprehensive update, Chief Constable. I think also it's helpful to have that operational context about how pressures have been rising. I assume we can in part put some of that to the weather conditions that we've all been having to live through and what the consequences of that might have been. But it really does sort of set a tone for the fact that as the county gets bigger and bigger population-wise, obviously there will be similar trajectories and pressures on our public services. I've been always very clear that the Policing Crime Plan places a very strong emphasis on modernising how policing operates, including digital transformation, new technology, AI and automation. So it's why I'm so pleased that on our scrutiny session today we're going to get to dive further into some of the areas that you've already raised in those introductions. Can I now move us on to slide 5? Which 3 measurable outcomes best demonstrate that the modernised pillar is delivering results? Which 3 measurable outcomes best demonstrate that the modernised pillar is delivering results?
I'm not sure we can limit it to 3, but there's been a range of achievements, and I've alluded to some of them already. I think the SARB Safe introduction, we actually brought it in when it was an ACC. That's provide state-of-the-art command and control. I think when you look around the country at some of the trials some forces not too far away from us have had with the implementation of their command and control systems. Actually, it's been a really effective and robust system which is proving its worth. Some of the mundane stuff, but really important, first UK force to take the next generation of radios. You can imagine the safety implications if our people can't effectively use radios, so some of that underpins it. Pioneer force for leads, the replacement PNC, so much of our business depends on national databases. Again, if we've not got that in place, that would make a massive difference. So there's some things there that would probably fall under routine business stuff that we've got to do, but there has been a danger in policing, I think, over the last decade to put some of that stuff off, to kick it down the road because of the pressures on finance. I think those examples are things that we've done that actually needed investment. We're on the right side of it now, and that's positive. In terms of current impacts and future impacts, obviously there's the AI enablement process, together with general robotics. I think everything gets lumped together under AI. There's a lot more into that available in that. We've developed our own robotic processes. Every officer and member of staff now has access to Microsoft Copilot chat and Teams transcription. That is being readily adopted and engaged with by our staff. After 180 days, there were 161,000 prompts, in effect questions, queries put by staff. So it shows that it's been adopted and people are open to that new technology. There are lots of things coming forward. As I mentioned, our approach, Bill Dutton leads on that for us, but we're pushing it out to the staff and asking them to come up with the options of things that they think would make the best use of our investment, and they're going to be tested in what sounds like a very intriguing process of a Dragon's Den event, where Bill will be... Which one are you going to be, Bill?
The one who has less money.
Okay, so the pauper on Dragon's Den, Bill will be sitting on that and taking a view on the various submissions.
We'll be with Microsoft as well, so they'll be providing the technical expertise on it.
So,
Look, I appreciate that. I mean, it's important that we always learn from things that don't go to plan, though. Is there anything in particular that you would say hasn't gone to plan and that there was a learning?
I think there's learning from everything. I mean, whatever process you do, it'd be remarkable if every time you did it, you did it optimally from the word go. I mean, we review, we debrief, we look at things to try and learn what the different processes are. We run numerous different pilots in the operating environment. We'll report on those in the next business paper, and that will include risks and benefits. I think the robust approach that we've taken, which has been complemented by the Home Office, means that we test everything from the outset. We look at it, is it making a difference, is it viable, and we'll move on from things if they're not working. So I think that speaks to a really effective programme. I'm struggling to think of any major issues where we've got really far down the road and we've had to pull the plug because it wasn't delivering the results. I think the initial robust process that we've got in and through Connected Constabulary, which Bill chairs, we've got a good track record of actually running with the things that make a positive benefit. So using that process, we've not had any initiatives that have gone through to implementation that you would say have been unsuccessful. They've been weeded out earlier in the process. So, yeah, there's nothing I'd point to and say that's been a particular failure. It's a natural process. You'll try a number of different options, and if you've got good processes, they'll come out at an early stage.
I mean, it's music to my ears when you talk about, piloting things, because I think that is absolutely the approach. Whenever we make an organisational change, we do lots of test, iterate, test, retest, and we get absolute confidence before we ever press go on technology. Okay, could I move us on to slide 6? Technology, as we all know, is evolving very quickly, and our workforces have to keep up with that. Have you identified any gaps in digital skills, and how do you plan to address them? In particular, I'm thinking about everyday users and the constabulary's ability to develop in-house solutions.
Yeah, I think we've previously mentioned on different sessions, we've had challenges through a significant period of uplifting staff. We've recruited lots of new people, which brings some challenges in relation to levels of experience, given austerity and the loss of staff and now the large-scale recruitment. One of the benefits is that I think as a workforce, we're recruiting people who are a lot more familiar with the digital world, certainly than I am. So the more adaptive to the introduction of new processes, and actually I think Bill will probably say that the more constructive in the feedback loop when we're asking about things, because they're used to using devices that are very intuitive and easy to use. That said, we're starting with a higher base of workforce knowledge, but we've done an awful lot of training to make sure that they have the requisite skills, and we've made them bespoke to Cheshire with our own training package supported by Microsoft, who handily have provided them free of charge as part of our ongoing relationship and rollout of Copilot. So they've run a series of introductory Copilot sessions, beginner-friendly workshops, hints and tips sessions, prompting masterclasses, framework sessions run online, and I think we've had a good and encouraging uptake from the staff that they're adapting to that, they're using it and seeing the benefit. The AI enablement team are currently working with training HR to record accessible how-to videos aimed at operational colleagues. I've got to say the how-to videos, which you'll be able to see on the website, have been brilliant additions. They are easy to use, quick, easy, and I think have got an awful lot of traction with staff. The benefit is then we move on to subjects as AI. They're a credible source of training for people, so we get a high degree of pick-up and they go down really well. Bespoke training has been delivered for those teams that are utilising TOEX, which tackles online exploitation, transcripts, translation services, and Prometheus, which again provides digital services, triage through keyword searching, functionality. Certainly you'll be aware, because I know you visited quite recently the online child abuse team, anything we can do to streamline the process, to minimise the degree to which human eyeballs have to watch everything that comes through that department is going to be very welcome. Clearly it needs to be done in a way that doesn't risk any safety because of the nature of it, but we've quadrupled the resource put into that area of business, which means that we're one of the few forces in the country without a backlog in that area. That doesn't happen unless you've got really committed staff, but also really slick processes that are available to the team to manage some of that appalling stuff that they have to see. As I mentioned, we're engaged with Microsoft to drive innovation as one of their frontier forces. They've got significant resources, you can imagine, and expertise. So I think it is a testament to the force that we've been chosen as one of their three frontier forces to work with them on developing programs.
I mean, look, I've seen the how-to as one example, and I think that is an invaluable addition where technology sort of driving up productivity just by doing something that's really quite straightforward in one way, but requires a huge amount of time and energy to actually properly do. So the Constabulary has absolutely done some great work there.
Sorry, I'll just mention
Abby,
who does them.
Yeah.
Absolute genius.
Yes.
The impact one person can have by just making things that are user-friendly, hits the mark with the sort of stuff that our staff want to look at. She's done a tremendous job with that.
Yeah, and I was at the award ceremony where she got some recognition for that as well, which I think is really important, because we do want a culture, of course, which rewards people who do stuff which is often considered sort of too hard to do. or not core, but actually has a load of knock-on benefits. The changes driven by technology are often referred to as the fourth industrial revolution. Do you feel confident that we've got the right mindset and culture that's in place to take advantage of these opportunities and adapt to this obviously fast-changing world?
Well, you know, we just mentioned Abby. She's one example of having absolutely the right mindset, but you can punt out brilliant products, but if people aren't receptive, then it's a waste. I think the take-up we have from our people on that is indicative of the fact that they are open to it. We have got the right mindset, we have got the right culture. I think it's important that when you're doing that, you make it relevant to them though. Mm-hmm. Because if we were putting stuff out that they didn't see, how's this going to make my job easier? How's it going to enable me to do my job better? Then you're not going to have the take-up. So that speaks volumes to the process. Despite all the chat nationally about AI modernisation, I couldn't confidently say we're the only force, but there aren't many forces that have an ACC dedicated to it, which I think signals my commitment and the command team's commitment to this area, that we'd put one of the most senior officers in the force directly responsible for this. So I think that sends a message from the top that we absolutely do prioritise this, and we've made sure that Bill gets current operational people working with him, very much focused on giving the operational people what they need, not people in the headquarters ivory tower designing what they think people might want. Nationally, the NPCC has got a playbook for AI. Clearly, we adhere to that. And the checklists by various people looking at the futures. Again, I've mentioned that the Home Office have validated our approach. I think they were very much taken that we weren't just jumping for the shiniest, expensive thing off the shelf, that we are working through a structured process that means we get the best bang for our buck, and it is driven by operational need, not big companies' catalogues.
I mean, I've obviously seen an awful lot that's been happening behind the scenes, and today is very much around making sure that the public who now get some transparency around some of this change have got the opportunity to sort of see about and hear about this work. But how joined up are all of these changes that are happening in this space, and how are they able to evolve into a single transformation journey?
So the key strategies that deliver the Constabulary's modernisation work are all directly linked to your police and crime plan. The Force's strategic planning framework uses the force management statement, which assesses current and future demands and capacity to deliver against them. I think, you know, practical examples of that are the uplift in OK staff and the uplifts we've seen in the force control room to meet some of those changes. And I think, you know, the work that Paul and his team do to make that a really worthwhile document have been a solid investment, because we're in a position where we're actually able to deal with some of the new challenges rather than being caught scrambling to catch up. That then informs obviously the priority-based budgeting process, where we take that perception of what the demand's going to be together with the available finance and ensure we've got the resources in the right place. Progress against the plans is then managed through the monthly senior command business team meeting, where we sign things off. Deputy Chief Constable chairs a digital delivery board with a specific focus on IT development, and then of course the OPCC monitor all of that through the Joint Management Board.
Look, thank you for that answer. I think the last point I'd like to make on this, on slide 6, is really a nod to the previous questions, which is that, you know, what initiatives, if any, have not been delivered with the expected benefits, and if that's the case, what has been learned from it?
Again, I go back to what I've said previously. I don't think there's anything where we've wasted money in terms of the investment of things, because it's the way we do it. We try and do it in-house, try and do it in collaboration with other people who are funding partners, and if we see something isn't going to be a productive item, then we don't pursue it. So I think the early thorough process we've done, which is joined up with a senior officer lead, everything comes back to the senior command team. I don't think we've run away with anything, that we're now living to regret. We pick up the things that work, the practical, they're led by operational practitioners, and so far, unless Bill's going to shake his head vigorously, I don't think there's anything that we've kind of spaffed any money on.
Everything internal is well assured and delivering. Our challenges come around some of the nationally mandated things.
I think that's the point I want to stress to the public and those who are viewing this, which is that, you know, there is a real culture of testing and testing and testing, so that whenever public funds are committed to scaling up something, it's only done so with absolute certainty that it's going to deliver what was expected at the start. And of course, there are examples where you start from a position where you want to commit to a project or an initiative, and actually through that testing it decides it's not the right product or service anymore. And I just think that's a really important thing to stress, because there are lots of examples where public services have wasted money on transformation, on modernisation, on digital services, and the sad reality is it doesn't matter whether you've done it or not. There is a narrative that public services don't do this well. So it's just an opportunity for us to really stress about the amount of scrutiny and internal challenge that is taking place around committing funds to this area. Can I now move us on to slide 7, which relates to key achievements. Looking at this slide, it states the Constabulary brought automation in-house, expanded use, saved money, plus is now delivering services for other UK forces, and also continue to add new automations, saving staff time. Can you just expand on that?
So as alluded to, we've used a third-party supplier to support automation within the force. That's now all been successfully migrated into the IT team, so that's all in-house. We've got 8 automations live across a range of operational and support departments, and these have processed over 200,000 tasks since February. You know, as we progress with this and we get numbers like that, we'll look to evaluate that in terms of officer staff time to work out some of those benefits. These all are aimed really at directly supporting operational activity. Examples would include bail management and missing persons. Once a new disposal for a police bail has been created, so when someone's brought into custody, we bail them. The automation finds it within the niche system, which holds all our records, and then processes the letter for printing. Where the bailee has a verified mobile phone number, the digital worker will send a text to the bailee. So that sounds quite a mundane process, but when you consider the number of people we arrest, bring into custody, some of those marginal gains, it's a small thing, but when you're doing it thousands and thousands and thousands of time, that is a real benefit. Automation also checks niche for missing person reports, including children, and confirms if the notification has been made an email to the relevant local authority. If not, it sends them an email. So again, it's a valuable thing to make sure that in relation to vulnerable people, we're doing the right thing. When the child is found, the automation also sends a found notification to the local authority, so they're promptly made aware of it, and that assists them. It'll check those missing for over 72 hours, and if a notification has been emailed to the NCA, if not, it emails and repeats the same found notification process. So again, this is all massively saving time from our staff, and because it's properly wired and tested, is going to have less of a failure rate than human intervention, because it's a set process triggered. So one, there's an efficiency saving, but there's also an effectiveness benefit in that it gives you a degree of surety that it's going to happen in each case. So we've got 3 new automations in progress and a further 22 being assessed. So you can imagine if we are getting savings in the ilk of 200,000 since February for each of them, that is going to build up into a significant amount of time saved.
Look, there's one key achievement which you've missed off there, and it's a credit to the Constabulary, which is that when we were setting budgets for this year that we're in now, and we're in that very early stage of understanding what we could commit to this area of modernisation, managing all those competing interests and pressures. We had ambitious plans to go much more than £500,000 a year into this space. We were closer to £1 million, but we had to scale that back, listening to the pressures that were there and believing that we could still move forward in an ambitious way. There's credit to the Constabulary on this, that using that hasn't deterred really the ambition, because you've been able to leverage in the contributions of some of the world's biggest tech companies who would have cost significant amounts of money every single day that they are supporting the police, but actually are doing this because they as organisations think this is an opportunity for them to be. So my hat goes off really to the Constabulary at having that ambition, having to scale it back in line with our budget process, but finding a way to effectively get a match contribution which is worth hundreds of thousands of pounds a year if we were having to write a contract with a tech provider. So that's absolutely something that I appreciate. We don't tend to talk about budgets previous, what we discussed and where we've ended up, but I think it's a recognition of a real achievement that's happened. Look, as digital technology grows, it is important that we understand and manage the risks that come with it. I've got a couple of questions here, and I'll give you them both to answer. How are the Constabulary managing the increasing cyber risk as digital capabilities grow? That's one, but also what has been learnt from cyber attack simulations and what changes have been made as a result of those?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone's aware that it's increasingly cyber world, and there are challenges and threats, not just from criminals, but also hostile state actors. So it is something that we're acutely aware of. I'll reference some stuff. There are other significant investments that I'm not going to discuss in a public forum. We've got a dedicated IT security team. One of the key things, though, is making sure that everyone doesn't think that it's their it's the IT team's responsibility. It's everyone's responsibility. So we've got a robust program. So for each of the, if you like, buckets of information, we identify the information asset owner. That doesn't need to be an IT professional. It generally isn't. It's people across the business who are responsible for that information. We've ensured they're all trained, they understand their responsibility. So it's about making IT security everyone's responsibility. We link in with the National Policing Security Operations Centre, which monitors threats. All new systems go through a really structured process where they're assessed against a range of security controls and best practice, and an information risk assessment report is drawn up outlining any threats that the information asset owner needs to be aware of. And I think there's an awful lot of this stuff is just basic good practice, not necessarily too exciting to listen to, but absolutely crucial. Systems are assessed against the defined risk. We have an information compliance team which review from a data protection perspective and other legislative assessments. We have many online training packages which people have to do. There's a test involved in those. They're as engaging as they possibly can be, but given the number of things that come out on such a regular basis, we do them online. They're pretty good. There's various tricks and tests that people get. Our own team will do spoof phishing exercises to see if people recognise the signs, and if people kind of fall for it, they're given a bit of a reminder and told just hopefully to bring it alive and ensure that it doesn't happen again. So from the simulations, we carry out the annual IT health check using appropriate people. We link in with national facilities to ensure that we're in the right place. We regularly get bulletins from them highlighting issues that have occurred in other places so that we can QA our own systems and making sure that we're learning from the mistakes of others. Nationally, there's support things that test systems and will feedback if there's any particular issues. And again, we engage with various people to initiate those sort of tests to make sure that they can't identify any specific vulnerabilities.
I think that's the point, to make the public aware that there is a culture around simulations and trying to make sure that the force is as resilient as is possible. Of course, all public services need to have resilience to cyber attacks, but for obvious reasons, policing is about as top of that list as you can get. Okay. Can we now move on to slide 11, which is relating to artificial intelligence and the enablement programme. The modernised part of the police and crime plan shows what can be achieved when there is clear leadership and a strong focus on change. And Cheshire Police is moving from being behind that AI curve to leading the way in how policing is evolving in that space. And I am aware that this is a very fast-moving space, and some forces have been playing in it for longer, but there's a huge culture change happening in policing as well as the rest of the public services. But that progress has not happened by accident. It's been driven by setting clear expectations and making sure change is actually happening. I've spent some time with the Constabulary's AI team, and I was hugely encouraged to see the work that's being done, driven by that commitment in my policing crime plan, and it's now turning into real action. And when the business case came to the Joint Management Board, and that's where myself and the Chief Constable make decisions, it was very clear that investment must deliver real benefits that save time and money and improve the service that the public receive. So can you provide some assurance around the proposed investment in AI and automation will deliver measurable financial savings and operational efficiencies, and also what metrics will be used to track these benefits over a time frame and the return on investment that is anticipated?
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily agree that we're behind the AI curve. I think we've taken a measured approach, which has been vindicated even, as opposed to vindictive, has been vindicated by the Home Office feedback about that approach, and they're now pointing other forces towards the approach that we've taken in terms of that measured thing. So I wouldn't accept we're behind it. I think we've taken a measured approach, which is now proving dividends. In terms of the savings piece, yeah, absolutely, we want to make savings and efficiencies that free up staff time, either ultimately in the longer term that frees up posts in effect because we're removing some of the mundane routine tasks, but equally it enables us to either give a better service to the public or meet the increased demand, which I alluded to before. We're in a situation now where if demand keeps increasing as it is, we are going to face challenges, and that one of the ways that we can look to manage that is by freeing up people from those routine tasks to actually do some of the things that requires human thought. So in terms of those savings, it's something we look at. We can articulate, as I've mentioned, some of the gains from robotics already. We're looking at all those things that make us more effective. We submitted the business case through to Joint Management Board, as you say, and we'll expand that in a full business case. And obviously the further down the line we get with all of these things, it will give us a better indication of what the actual tangible benefits will be. Currently we're looking at the return on investment to be realised in the following financial year from this one after implementation, and that would rely on those workforce changes if we're able to make them. Really important, there's a lot of concern with people, I think, in terms of what the impact of AI will be. There's been a big announcement today in relation to a major multinational and British American Tobacco, which apparently is moving to be a smokeless company by 2035. They're losing 9,000 posts, I think, globally as a result of this, so there's concerns. I think as ever we'll look to do this in a very measured way in areas where we can work through attrition as those efficiencies come in and we can be really certain of them. I think spend at this point has been minimal, as you've alluded to. We are being very judicious with our money and seeking to ensure that we get bang for our buck. The AI enablement team have prioritised work in areas of the constabulary where there are demonstrable opportunities for efficiencies. One of them would be crime recording. We record a significant number of crimes, and it's another one of those examples where by automating a system, one, you can guarantee a higher degree of efficiency because call them a robot agent or a
Digital worker.
digital worker.
Yeah.
So a digital worker is going to work to lay down procedures and it will apply them more rigorously, and it rules out a degree of human error. But obviously, if you can use them on tens of thousands of tasks, then that is going to reduce the amount of human hours that are required on it, and it potentially gives us savings. So I think in the interim paper that's coming to you, we're highlighting each of those and what we think the prognosis is for those developments. As I mentioned, we've utilised the Home Office funded and free to deliver AI solutions such as TOEX and Prometheus, which again are things which can remove some of the mundane nature of the task. Prometheus is a cloud-based digital forensics tool hosted on the Police Digital Service site. It's nationally funded, and that takes data from all sorts of places, analyses it, brings it together, and really saves an awful lot of time in terms of pulling that together. TOEX is tackling online exploitation, and that's a suite of applications designed to assist in a range of investigations where it pulls together information from all manners of sources and can translate and transcribe it. So those are things at no cost to us, which are having a positive benefit already.
And look, I appreciate that. I think the point that I'm trying to make around the AI curve and being behind it is visiting other force areas and seeing that they had more established relationships with tech companies that we have now made happen. And I think it's worked well that we haven't been an absolute pioneer on some of this stuff, because there are forces now who are clearly locked in to relationships that are much harder to decouple from. So I think the point I want, and I'm not surprised as Chief Constable that you are going to want to make sure that Cheshire is seen and known to be the best. I think actually that being behind the curve that I put out there, I think is to the benefit of where we are right now. And I just wanted to stress that. But I'm not surprised that as Chief Constable you want to make sure that there's no negatives apportioned to Cheshire Police. This is really a reflection, I think, of holding back in a fast-moving world and then proceeding once we've got clarity as to what we think is the best way to spend public money.
Well, you'd be aware, obviously, I know you're aware, that there's been some very high-profile investments or potential investments. You know, the Metropolitan Police currently, I think, in dispute with the Mayor of London over the Palantir investment, which is a significant amount of money. We are very keen to look at other forces. We do look at other forces. Certainly Bedfordshire are probably the trailblazer for this. They certainly benefited as an early adopter because they had significant funding from the Home Office. So that was funded from the Home Office, and good luck to them. We speak to them regularly. They come and look at what we've done in other areas. We've been and looked at what they've done. So we will happily steal with pride developments from anywhere else. Exactly
right. Look, this slide explains the AI project initiated a large-scale business intelligence exercise. It will be useful for the public to understand how the priorities were set against the 353 user stories.
So we've mentioned the culture being a positive one in the force in relation to this sort of development. The 353 volunteered user stories, which came from our people who were looking at things where it could make a difference, were all individually reviewed, triaged and categorised into 17 different themes. You can imagine people in different bits of the business would say how it works for them, but you're broadly able to brigade them into specific themes. So that could be redaction, where we've got to take personal detail out of documents, translation, as I've already mentioned, and transcription. That then helped to identify areas of potential cross-deployment across the organisation to maximise the return on investment. So we weren't just doing it for one bit of the business, it was able to read across into other areas. Those initial opportunity assessments were then conducted across 10 priority departments to do the deeper dive into individual workflows and processes. The criteria that we used in relation to selecting those were part based on HMIC FRS value for money data, suitability for AI deployability, and HR information, for example, staff turnover. Second tranche of assessments has commenced across a further 7 departments. So I think it speaks to what you were saying about us looking to be business-led, have that rigorous process, and that kind of underpins why we've not had, hopefully, touch wood, any staggering failures where we've wasted money, because of that rigorous process where we engage with people at the start of it.
Yeah, look, and let me just put down on record my sort of thanks and support for the team that are doing this work. I mean, the visit was invaluable to inform the thoughts that my office is having in this space and the reassurances that we obviously need around that money. But you could see there was a real determination in that team, led by ACC Dutton, that there is absolute need to get this right. You know, we don't get an opportunity to do this sort of investment in public services lightly. You know, this often has consequences when we're trying to do this. We have to make difficult decisions to create the financial envelope to do this work. But you could see there's a real culture in that team, which is that they realise the significance of this challenge and are not in any way shying away from it, are completely rising to it. So I want to put down on particular record that the thanks to that team who are doing some amazing innovative work in UK policing.
And you know, Bill obviously leads it, but needs the support of other people. Mm-hmm. So when we're looking at teams like that, we've made sure that we're giving the team good people, proper operational practitioners who will bring the sort of motivation that they probably bring to a driving response car to looking at this, because we want it. We recognise if we're not spending lots and lots of money, we're going to have to lead the way by having good people with good plans and a rigorous process. So the broader team get this, and they've made sure that they given Bill and the team really good people that drive it.
Yeah, it's clear, it's seen. Okay, look, can we move on to slide 16, which is in relation to the estate strategy. At the Crewe and Nantwich Citizens' Assembly, we saw people genuinely change their views about the police estate. As they heard more about how policing works in practice, they began to understand that much of modern policing is not just about what happens on the streets, but it's also a significant amount of desk-based investigations that happen behind the scenes. Through that process, residents went on a journey where they gained a better understanding of the need for flexible, modern workplaces that support officers and staff so that they can all do their jobs effectively. And then by the end, there was a much stronger appreciation of why the estate needs to evolve to meet the demands of today's policing. And you gave a really simple but accurate assessment of the Crewe police station and the need for change there. It would be helpful for the public listening today to understand this and how they can benefit from modernising the police estate. People are interested in help desks in a busy town like Crewe and Warrington, and we'd also like to understand some of the typical footfall of those examples. But people are clearly want to know more about this, so it'd be helpful if you could give us an explanation around that.
Yeah, I mean, front desks and police stations are very totemic, and I know they're important to communities. We don't routinely check on the number of people calling at help desks, although we are going through an exercise currently. But when we've done it before, when we're looking at rationalising the police estate, it's pretty staggering how few people go in police stations. And the majority of people who go in are there because we've asked them to. So it's people coming for appointments with officers, it's people producing documents, it's people who have who are in the criminal justice system in one way or another and are mandated to sign on at police stations. So the vast majority of demand is actually driven by ourselves, which can be accommodated by, there's plenty of rooms in police stations. If people have got an appointment to go in, that can be dealt with. We have maintained front counters in each of the policing areas with an additional one on the east because of the geography, and we appreciate that there's a big distance between Macclesfield and Crewe, but they are not well used. Predominantly, the vast majority of people call us on the telephone. So in the last 12 months, we've received almost 150,000 999 calls and 170,000 non-emergency calls, which are big numbers and obviously the preferred means of contact. In terms of alternate means, single online home has seen a big growth via the website. For the year end, May 26, there was more than 49,000 submissions, which is a 40% increase on 4 years ago. Paul will remember this because we had the discussions. I think we were hopeful that single online home would move demand from the call centre onto online into a more manageable format, because obviously it can be spread in terms of responding. I think the hope was it would move some demand from that channel into the single online home channel, which would take pressure off the SCC. I think practically what it's done is just increase demand, because there are people who will prefer to use the online piece, but that's not really, well, it hasn't diminished the people putting calls into the call centre. So it's good that we've got an alternate means of people contacting us, but it has actually increased demand. So in terms of the front desk, we're refreshing the telephones that are on the front of them. So if it's not a staffed police station, people can ring us via that telephone and we'll get a response out to them and can deal with it. But generally help desks are not well used at all.
I think it's important to stress that the vast majority of correspondence with the public and policing obviously come through 999 and 101. I mean, these are things that have always been pretty close proximity to people's ability to pick up the phone, but obviously the vast majority of people have a phone on them all the time now, and so it's obviously a much faster response to speak to somebody than trying to get yourself to a police station. And I think that's the point that is also lost when there has been closures of help desks, that you can still go to a police station and you can make a call from a police station. And I must admit, it's also reassuring to hear that technology is also being upgraded as well. Because if someone does get there in a panic to find that the technology isn't working, it obviously erodes that trust and confidence that people expect. Yeah. And of course, there could be a police officer within a few metres of them when they need somebody, but they might as well be on the other side of the county because of the frustration in that scenario. I would now like us to move on to slide 17, which relates to Commissioner's questions. At last month's meeting, I learned there were only 51 PCSOs in post. Has that changed since the last meeting? So,
current understanding figures, there's 50 PCSOs, which 48 are deployable. In terms of whether someone's deployable, we exclude officers or members of staff absent for 4 weeks or more due to sickness, maternity, suspension, or something that keeps them out for 4 weeks.
So, I mean, this was a very, very public discussion, and I think around last year's budget setting process that we were all very much alive to and have spoke in different ways publicly about including a joint meeting of the Police and Crime Panel. But the funding we secured and that has been awarded was to make sure that there was 57 roles in place. Now, I am alive to the fact that we have a vacancy rate, which means that can fluctuate. But at 50, that is lower than that vacancy rate. When and how will we be able to get back to that 57? And I ask this because this is something that we've had a huge amount of correspondence from the public, understandably, around. So I think your reassurance and answer on this is really important.
So The first thing I'd say is I entirely understand the public's concern about this. The whole reason for PCSOs is community engagement. So if PCSOs are out doing the job in communities, speaking to people, building relationships, it would be surprising if PCSOs were no longer going to be in that role and it didn't cause a degree of public angst, because the whole purpose is to build a relationship. That said, you know, we've had the conversation. My job is to look at the threats that we need to deal with and make sure resource is allocated in the most appropriate way to deal with the demands and threats that we're facing. In some ways, I need to be more dispassionate in terms of the allocation of resource based on threat, because candidly, public perception is incredibly important, but we are charged with certain things and sometimes need to make difficult choices that the public might not always like, but we have to, as the professional policing people, make those decisions based on what's the most important thing for them. In terms of the PCSO piece, they are part of the neighbourhood function, as I know you're aware. We and I made the commitment that where we lost PCSOs in a particular ward, we would replace that with a warranted police officer. I've mentioned some of the challenges that we've recently faced, and actually the ability to have a strong cohort of warranted police officers gives me a degree of flexibility to surge people such as the 160 last Friday, which I cannot do with members of police staff. In terms of replenishing PCSOs, we need to get to a number where it's viable to run a course. It's simply not cost effective to run a course on small numbers. We'll keep that under review, as we do with police officers, a couple of points through the year, and determine as and when we need to put training. Again, I'm not being dismissive of public concerns, but we need to provide a strong neighbourhood policing officer that meets all of the requirements. And I'd really encourage people to consider that as part of the neighbourhood grant, we have certain obligations that we need to meet in terms of making sure that's staffed up. So in terms of that commitment, we are one of only 7 forces out of 43 to be 100% compliant. So we might not be doing it with the resource that people in particular parishes or areas might wish, but we are absolutely meeting our obligations under the rules that were laid down by the Home Office into providing that neighbourhood grant. And it is something we just need to keep an eye on. Yes, if finances allow, of course we want more PCSOs, but equally need to balance the other challenges. So we will keep it under review. I know you're acutely focused on this issue. We will monitor it, we'll report it through the normal means, and as and when we reach the position that we need a certain number of PCSOs, then we'll run a course when it's cost effective.
I mean, the need for local areas to have named police officers, as set out in the Neighbourhood Policing Guarantee, is very, very clear. I think I'm getting lots of passing conversations from stakeholders where they don't believe that's currently being met. Now, I always say to people, if you have something, send it into my office. You can, of course, take it with Constabulary, but you appreciate stakeholders don't necessarily have a deep understanding of the communication channels in the Constabulary. So I want to give you that sort of feedback, that where we are told from members of the public or stakeholders that they don't believe that's being met, we're obviously going to be providing that information transparently as fast as possible. And of course, where we've not got PCSOs, the agreement is that there should absolutely be a PC doing that role. So even in the 57 that's now 50, there should absolutely be PCs backfilling that space. And I think that needs to be absolutely clearly communicated. And of course, making sure that the online sort of, my area is as updated as fast as possible. Now, I appreciate Chief Constable, that's not, you're not doing that, but clearly there are LPUs that will do it faster than others because of the nature of the complexity of that work.
I mean, ACC Ross is absolutely focused on this, so we do check the websites are updated. We do backfill PCSOs with officers. One of the commitments is that obviously we keep the websites updated, that we communicate people if they have a query into the mailbox within 72 hours, that we have a named officer. And as I say, we're 100% compliant on all of those issues. Look, if you're getting feedback that some of that isn't happening, we need to know, but we need to know the specifics. Because in the same way that people will tell you if you're in 101, you're going to be waiting for an hour or 45 minutes, and we simply know that's not the case. So we just need to work hard at communicating that to the public. And absolutely, if we drop the ball in any of those areas, I'm not naive enough to say we will always be right all the time. That's clearly nonsensical for any organisation. But if you get specifics, tell us and we'll address it, because we've made that commitment. The funding is dependent on us meeting the obligations. We are meeting the obligations. And as I say, a vibrant, robust and well-resourced neighbourhood policing team is absolutely fundamental to the successes that we're having in the constabulary.
Look, I think the public have been very clear that the visibility is really important, and it does come up regularly. In keeping with the modernisation discussion, you know, we know the technology is being implemented that will track activity in each area, and I look forward to seeing the results of that. But considering the significant public interest on this, I want to reiterate to you, but also reassure the public that this is an action of which there's going to be questions routinely brought about at future meetings to make sure that we are keeping on track when it comes to our neighbourhood policing guarantee. There is a huge amount of work that happens in policing, but for so many of our residents, neighbourhood policing is the absolute focus for them, and they make that very clear to me, and it's my duty to make sure that I am holding you as our Chief Constable to account in the execution of that neighbourhood policing guarantee.
I mean, you know, I'm absolutely wedded to neighbourhood policing. There's no issue whatsoever with that. I always have been, whichever force I've worked in. So there's no pushback on that. And I understand the public concern. All I would ask is that the public consider neighbourhood policing in the round and don't become fixated on the PCSO issue. I appreciate the attachment people had to the PCSOs. One of the questions I've been actively engaging with our LPUs on when I go around and speak to them, and particularly the LPU commanders, what impact has the loss of the PCSOs caused them operationally? And again, I don't denigrate the level of community engagement they had with certain areas, but the operational view is that it's not an operational impact. The enhancement of warranted police officers has way over compensated for the PCSOs. We actively monitor engagement because I know and have heard and acknowledge all the arguments, but one of the things here is, well, you'll abstract police officers where you won't do PCSOs. Our abstractions are minimal. They are well below national targets. But the flip side of that is, I'll make no apologies, at times we will abstract officers, because if we have a web house, if we have a PSU requirement to send people somewhere, if we have to surge demand on response like we did last Friday, I will deploy officers. And much as we will try and protect the neighbourhood teams, on occasion everyone's going to have to muck in, and that will be police officers. So it gives me that added flexibility. That is that flexibility in extremis and based on operational need. Not something I want to do, because I absolutely recognise the value of having identifiable officers in specific locations to forge those links with the community.
Okay. Well, I think that concludes Commissioner's questions section. I would just now, on closing remarks, to say thank you to the Chief Constable and the Constabulary colleagues for answering the questions that have been raised today, with the aim of providing that transparency, accountability and the reassurance to the public that we all serve. And thank you for the members of the public who've joined our Public Scrutiny Board online. And I will now bring the meeting to a close. Thank you.
Thank you.